Is there any changes in the behavior of the existing environment? Then that will going to be sensed by the sensor. Technology will not going to improve the efficiency. Along with that, I must have a big data. Big data function is what? Management of a big data in the enterprise. If you are not managing it properly, then we can't get a benefit from this big data. Hello everybody, a warm welcome to one and all. I am Rohini TS from the Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence, MYSURU. So in my today's session, I will be discussing about B.C.A's third year, that is semester 5 of a subject called Cloud Computing and Big Data Analytics, and we are dealing with the Unit 3 of Session 1. And then what is the chapter name here? The unit name is Introduction to Big Data Acquisition, Collection and Transmission. So before getting into the today's session, let me have a syllabus copy of this Unit 3. So here you can see the syllabus copy of this Unit 3. So in this Unit 3, we will be learning about what do you mean by big data. So what is the need of having this? What are the types of big data we have? So what are the trends and what are the types of structured and unstructured data? What are the sources of having this big data? So these many topics we will be learning in the Unit 3. So let me get into the today's session regarding the first topic, that is Introduction to Big Data. As the name indicates, big data is nothing but the data which is in the big size. That means the volume of a data is very large. So this will going to have variety of data. So you can take the example of social media account. You can take the example of census data. So those are all the voluminous data and which is larger in size. That is regarding this big data, and you can see the definition here. Big data, it is a collection of data that is huge in the size, that is in the volume, and then it growing exponentially. It is not a static data. It will going to be grow day by day, even by hour to hour. How the data is rapidly or elastically, it is growing from the small data to the exponential data, that is related to this big data. So with time, and it is a data with so large size and complexity that none of the traditional data management tools can store it or process it efficiently. So we can't expect any other traditional method will going to have a capability to process these kind of data. So that kind of data will be termed as what? Big data. So mainly is what? It is a collection of data which is huge in the volume or which is huge in the size, and it is not static, it is dynamic in nature. It will going to be grow or it will going to be growing exponentially on the basis of time. We'll see the next topic, that is big data acquisition. As we all know that big data is a data which is larger in size. Then where we are going to get this data? So what are the methods we have in order to acquire? So here acquisition in the sense how we are going to collect this big data, from what are the sources we have, how we are going to get this big data, we'll see now. So different data processing architecture of a big data have been proposed to address the different characteristics of the big data. So as we all know that big data is not a static one, it is dynamic in nature, and I can't use simple techniques or I can't use only simple characteristics in order to illustrate this big data. Then we'll see about this big data acquisition has been understood as the process of gathering. What is this acquisition means? Acquisition in the sense what? I'm gathering the data. Is this big data will going to conduct or it will going to contain only same kind of data? Obviously not. So if I say the example of census data, it will going to be differ from state to state, and it will be differ from even from one house to another house also. So gender will be there, and the age factor, their employment, everything will going to be matters. So the data which is diverse in nature, that means it will going to have a different kinds of data or heterogeneous data. Then what do you mean by this big data acquisition? It is a process of gathering, filtering and cleaning the data before the data is put in a data warehouse or any other storage solution. After cleaning the data or after getting know what are the kinds of data I require for my organization or for my analysis of the enterprise, we are going to gather different data from the different sources. Then I need to do some filtering. So that means whichever is required, whichever is not required, based on that we are going to do the filtration. After that, cleaning. Is this necessary in order to use this for analysis or not? If not, then that will not going to be considered. Some transformations, some computations, things will going to take place in this cleaning. After that, it will needs to be stored somewhere else in the memories. That means it will going to be put into the data warehouse or any other storage solution for the purpose of future use. So this methodology will be termed as what? Data acquisition. Then the acquisition of big data is most commonly governed by 4 V's. Remember, it will be termed by 4 V's. So if I am collecting the data, it consists of 4 V's. That is what? Volume. I have to think about its size, and I have to think about the velocity, how speed or how fast I can get the data. Then variety. So it must be what? Heterogeneous data. If I am collecting the same kind of data, that is no of use for my analysis. It has to be different in nature. Then its value. What is the worth of having this data in my collections or data for the analysis? So now you can see the big data types. So now we got to know that what is big data, how can I get that big data, and it is characterized by 4 ways. Now we'll see what are the types of big data we have. So we have 3 types. One is structured, unstructured, and we have a semi-structured. As the name indicates, structure, it is a collection of large amount of data. So if it is following some methodology, or if it is following some rules and regulations, or some of the procedures in order to have that kind of data, will be termed as structured. Unstructured, there is no structure for the data. Semi-structured could be a combination of unstructured as well as structure. We'll see the first type, that is related to this structured data. Any data that can be stored, accessed and processed in the form of the fixed format. So I'm collecting the data, I'm using the data, and I'm storing, accessing, I'm doing some computation part with respect to that data, which will going to have a fixed format, will be termed as what? Structured data. Then what is the example for the structured data? You can take the example of database. So it will going to have a table of employee. So if you consider the employee table, what it comprises of? So it will going to have a employee ID, and it has a employee name, salary will be there, age will be there. So there will be some fields, there will be some records. That means it has a structure. Every data will going to be stored in some format for my accessing, for my storing of data. So in order to do some filtering for all the data, we have some structures. That will be, or it will going to have some fixed format. That kind of data will be termed as what? Structured data. So example is what? Any table in the database. We'll see about the unstructured. As the name indicates, it is just a reverse of structure. It is not following any fixed format for the accessing and storing of a data. So that will be termed as what? Unstructured data. So any data with unknown form, so it doesn't contain any form or it doesn't have any structure, which will be classified as what? Unstructured data. Then what it comprises of? There is no structure, so it can consist of images, videos, audios, or any numbers or any alphabets characteristics which does not have any structures or which is not following any fixed format. So if you take the example of images, that has what? A JPEG format is there, and we have a PNG, we have a TIFF. That means what? It will going to have a variety of formats, and the format is unknown. So that kind of structure will be termed as what? Unstructured big data. So example is what? Any kind of text or any kind of images, videos, audios, and even Google search is the best example, or any of the search engine. So how we are going to get the data over there? You are going to get a links. You will be getting all the pages you can get, and images will be there, videos will be there, some documents will be there, some links will be there. That is what? You are going to get variety of data, and that structure is unknown or which is structureless. That will be termed as what? Unstructured. Next we have a semi-structure. It will going to lies, or it will going to take both structured as well as the unstructured. So here Semi-structured data can contain both forms of data. It can be comprises of what? Both structured data as well as the unstructured data. Then what is the example for this semi-structured? That is RDBMS. So, and also you can take the example of XML file. It has some structure and it is unknown or it is somehow structureless. So, that is a combination of both. That is termed as what? Semi-structured. I hope you all understood these many topics. We'll see the next one, that is characteristics of big data. So, now I got to know that it is following 4 V's. Which are those? It has a volume, it has a variety, it has a velocity and it has a variability in nature. Then what is this volume is all about? It mainly depends or it will going to be related to the size of the data, which is enormous. So that means what? It is not going to contain only one page of data. It is not having only 10 lines of data. It is enormous in nature. That means it will going to be grow exponentially. So that first V is related to volume. Volume in the sense it is related to its size. Next we have a variety. So this big data comprises of variety of data. So here the variety refers to the heterogeneous sources. It is not similar kind. It is of different kinds. That is represented as what? Heterogeneous. Source is nature of the data, both structured and unstructured. It will be considered as what? Semi-structured. This variety in the sense what? It has a variable or variant kinds of data, that is heterogeneous data. So next we have a velocity. Velocity reference to what? The speed of generation of the data. So if I am giving it for analysis or if I am having some data for accessing, how fast it will going to give me the result. That is related to velocity. So how fast the data is generated and processed to meet the demands determines the real potential in the data. So that is related to what? Velocity, volume, size and variety, heterogeneous data. Then it's related to velocity, how fast the data will going to be generated. Next we have a variability. So here this refers to the inconsistency which can be shown by the data at times. That means what is its capability or capacity in order to recover from the failures. So if it is having inadequate data or if it is having inconsistent data, how it will going to deal all those situations. So thus hampering the process of being able to handle and manage the data effectively. So if I get to know how to manage the data effectively, even though data is inadequate and even though data is inconsistent, that is related to what? Variability. So these are the 4 V's or characteristics of the big data. We'll see the next point, that is big data applications. Application in the sense what? The field where we are going to use is big data. Now I got to know the definition of big data and its characteristics and its benefits. Then where I can use this big data applications or where I can have this big data technology. We'll see now smart grid case and in the e-health, electronic health, then Internet of Things, IoT, and can be used in the public utilities and can be used in the transportation and logistics. So if you consider the small grid case, it is related to what? National power consumption. So it will going to have a concern regarding how many units will going to be transferred from one transformer and how the electricity is managed or utilized in a efficient manner. Any malpracticing taking place, is anyone taking the unwanted channel or if anyone taking the current from the transformer. So that kind of sensors will going to be adopted to transformer in order to get to know the malpractice or in order to get to know anything which is cheated to the government. For that purpose, we are going to have this analysis. Is there any changes in the behavior of the existing environment? Then that will going to be sensed by the sensor. Then notification will going to be sent to the main authority. Then they will get to know some malpracticing or some of the things which is going wrong. For that purpose also we are going to have this big data. And we have a e-health. That means as I told, this big data is going to deal with a variety of data. So if you consider a person or if you consider any of the patient, they are not going to get the data only from the hospital. They will get the data from the medical shop, they will get the data from even laboratory. Everything needs to be collaged. So they have to get the opinion from the doctors. All the details of a patient will not going to be concerned or will not going to be generated only from the hospital. It can also be generated from various factors. So that in order to store variety of data which is related to e-health or which is related to having a details of a patient or a customer or a person, one who is related to the hospital or related to healthcare, everything needs to be managed, accessed and stored independently with the help of this big data application. Next we have a Internet of Things. So now all we are living in the digital world. Everything is somehow automated in some situations, so that in the purpose of this IoT, big data technology can be used. And also we have a public utility. So you can consider the example of water supply here. So in the same way, what is the efficiency of supplying the water? Is there any leakages? So office will be somewhere else, some leakage in the water supply will going to be take somewhere else in any of the area. That time who will going to inform them? So there will be some sensors that will going to notify to the main branch. Then they will come and they will check out the leakages which is happening in the water pipeline connection. So water supply is related to this public utilities. And also we have a transportation and logistics which will going to have a GPS, road maps. So these are the applications which can be used with the help of this big data technology. I hope you all understood regarding this big data applications. We'll see the next topic, that is big data framework. So big data framework, what it means? As I told, it is of enormous data. It has to be managed in a well manner. Then who is going to take care about all these variety and velocity and variability of the big data? So we have some structures in order to have a proper management of the big data. So that is what frameworks provide, the structure to the data. So the main or core objective of the big data framework is to provide a structure for enterprise organization that aim to benefit from potential of the big data usage. So this main objective of this big data framework is what? It has to give or it has to provide a structure for the enterprise or organization that will going to aim in order to get the full benefit of the big data. So there must be some boundaries, there must be some structures. So if we get to know the limits, then we can work on that. So then we will get to know what is its strength and weakness, what are the threats we are going to have. So if we don't have any structures in the big data, or if it is not having any of the boundaries, then there could be a possibility of misuse of the data. So that there must be some structure that will going to be provided by this framework. So here, in order to achieve the long-term success, big data is more than just a combination of skilled people and technology. Having a skilled people and technology will not going to improve the efficiency. Along with that, I must have a big data. So if I have an adequate amount of information, if I have a enormous data in order to make an analysis for my organization or for my enterprise, then there must be also a skilled person as well as the technology, and taking care about the big data is also going to place a very important role. So if you wanted to have this big data architecture or big data framework, so it must require structure and capabilities. So now we'll see what are the benefits we can get with the help of this big data framework. What is the first point we have? The big data framework provides a structure for organizations that want to start with a big data or aim to develop their big data capabilities further. So for example, you just imagine you wanted to have some of the startup companies. At that time, if you are taking this big data as a service for you, at this framework will going to provide you the service. That means it will going to give you the structure, how you are supposed to maintain the big data, what are the kinds of data you need to have, so data which needs to be deleted. It will going to completely will going to give you the capabilities of the big data as well as its structure. Then The big data framework includes all the organizational aspects that should be taken into account in a big data organization. So if I have an organization, if I'm running any of the enterprise or a firm, I must know all the aspects of organization. It could be related to marketing, accounting, finance, organizing, planning, staffing, anything it could be. But I must know what are the aspects of the organization. That things is also going to be provided by this big data framework. And the big data framework is vendor independent. So if you wanted to have a framework of big data, it is vendor independent. So you no need to rely on a single person in order to have this framework. So that means it can apply to any organizational irrespective of choice of technology, specialization or tools. So irrespective of the organizational choice based on the technology or services, specializations or tools, so you can have this big data framework for your organization. So this big data framework provides a common reference across all the perspective or can be used in the across the departmental function of any organization. So it is what somehow it is mainly meant for some organization, and how many numbers of branches it can have. So all the branches will going to have some common framework. So if it is common for all the department, then work will be easy. Then the big data framework identifies the core and measurable capabilities in each of its 6 dimensions. So it will going to have 6 dimensions. With the help of that 6 dimension, it will going to identify what is exactly the need and what is the measurable capabilities it will going to have. So here you can see its 6 dimensions. It will going to include big data strategy, it has a big data architecture, and we have a big data functions, and also we have a big data algorithm, we have a big data processes, and we have a artificial intelligence. So these are the 6 dimensions of a big data framework. So now we'll see about each big data framework dimensions. What is the first thing? That is big data strategy. As the name indicates, strategy in the sense what? If I wanted to be top in the market, I have to get to know the limitations, I have to get to know the strength and weakness of my competitors. So if I get to know their weakness and strength, then we can play with the competitors. So here also big data strategy, anyway data is huge. So if I didn't know how to make a strategies, or if I didn't know how to utilize the data which is available, then there could be a possibility of coming down in the market. So we have to understand, or we have to analyze what kind of data we have and how can I get benefit out of this data. So we'll see about this big data strategy. So the data, as we all know that data is a asset to the organization, so that the capability in order to analyze the large data set and this concern about the patterns in the data can provide an organization with a competitive advantage. So if I get to know the cost and value of my data, how can be used and who can be used, when, why, what purpose, and how it will be used. If I get to know the strategy of using of a data or enormous data, that will going to help me in order to be in the top of a organization, so that it will going to give the competitive advantages if we have a big data in the pocket. Next, we'll see about the big data architecture. What is the second dimension? Related to architecture. So in order to work with massive data set, it is not what small data, it will going to be very massive in size, and organization should have the capability to store and process large quantity of data. I'm dealing with a large amount of data, then organization must have, this means this architecture will going to provide the capability to the organization in order to handle the large amount of data with respect to storage and its process. What is the next dimension? That is big data algorithms. What is this algorithm? It is a step-by-step procedure to solve a given problem. How can we use this in the big data? That is, a fundamental capability of working with the data is to have a thorough understanding of statistics and algorithms. So if I didn't know what is my data is all about, what is comprises of, then we will be in the problem. So if we don't know the value of a data, then we can't use for a particular purpose. Then in the algorithms, we have to understand its statistics, for what purpose we have and how can I use this, and if I didn't know how to use this in a step-by-step manner, then that could be one of the problems. So in the framework, this will going to provide a suggestion if you have this big data algorithm. We'll see the next dimension, that is big data processes. This processes is mainly focuses on their direction. Processes brings a structure and it measurable steps, and it can be effectively managed on a day-to-day basis. So if I am not managing my data and information properly, then there could be a chances of misusing of data. So if we have the processes properly, like if we have a processes as a one of the dimension in my framework, at that time it will going to help us in order to use or in order to access, store, or in order to process, do some computation, transformation of a data in an effective and efficient manner. For that purpose, we require this big data processes. Next, we have a big data functions. What is this big data functions has? It will going to be concerned with the organization aspects of managing big data in enterprise. Main concern is about the big data function is what? Management of a big data in the enterprise. If you are not managing it properly, then we can't get a benefit from this big data. At last, we have a artificial intelligence, a current trend in the market. We are making a computer has to behave like a human. So it has to get the data, it has to think on its own. So that is what this artificial intelligence is all about. This addresses the relation between the big data and artificial intelligence, and then outline key characteristics of AI, that is artificial intelligence. So if I am using this artificial intelligence in my big data, at the time it will going to analyze the data in a well manner. So I can get to know what will going to happen in the next 10 days of the market. Then we are going to get a future vision with the help of this artificial intelligence. So these are the 6 dimensions which can be concerned with respect to the big data framework or a structure of big data framework. We'll see the next topic, that is big data analytics. What is this analytics is all about? I have a large amount of data. If I didn't know how to use my data, or what are the value of the data and who can use it, when can use it, how can use it, if I don't know its analysis, or if I'm failed to analyze the data what and all we have, then it is also one of the features or one of the disadvantages of big data. So here analytics in the sense we are just analyzing the process. It is just a process of collecting, organizing and analyzing a large amount of data in order to uncover hidden pattern. This hidden pattern could help me to make a best decision in the organization. So what is this big data analytics is all about? It is a collection. So we have to collect the data from different sources. Then we have to organize, like whether it is related to marketing, whether it is related to planning, whether it is related to designing. So we have to organize it properly, and then we have to analyze a large amount of data, and based on its purpose we have to analyze in order to uncover the hidden pattern. So correlation and other meaningful insight can be takes place with the help of this big data analytics. Then here you can see some of the technologies can be used with the big data in order to make up analytics over the big data. Which are those? We have a Hadoop. It will going to deals with a large amount of data which is unstructured in nature. So it will going to have a concern regarding the text, images, videos, audios which is not structured. So it will going to take care about the data which is unstructured or which is massive in nature. And next we have a data mining. So here I am going to retrieve, or we are going to have some patterns. So in order to make a future decision. So this is related to KDD process, that is knowledge discovery. So we are retrieving the hidden patterns. We are uncovering the hidden patterns in order to make a best decision. And we have a text mining. It is related to what? In order to gather or in order to fetch the data or information which is exist over online. For example, you can take the example of giving a likes to the any of a pic, giving some comments to any of the videos. So from the reviews or from the feedback we can fetch some data. So if I am fetching the data for a particular video, I can get to know analysis. That means I can able to analyze that video is what is all about. So that indicates that what kind of response we can get for the particular kind of data. So there also there could be a situation of analyzing the data in a different dimensions. So instead of asking someone regarding how was the movie, so if I'm just uploading that pic in the social media, if they are keep on commenting or if they keep on liking, then we can retrieve some patterns with the help of that text, whatever they are going to put as a comment. For that purpose also we are going to have this text mining, and also we have predictive analytics. So what will going to happen in the next 10 days in the market? By making your analyzing the historical data, we are going to analyze, or we will get to know what will be the situation of next 10 days in the market. For that purpose also we are going to have this technology in order to make a best analysis over the big data. I hope you all understood. So you can see the benefits of big data. That means if I analyze the data and if I analyze the large amount of data, anyway organization will going to get benefits. So we can use it in the fields or organization for the purpose of e-commerce industry and in the social media. So you can get the data, or you can get the comments, or you can get the like, you can check the number of analysis with the help of this social media. And we can also have this big data analytics in the field of healthcare and in the field of banking, entertainment industries, and then it can be used anywhere, mainly in order to analyze the various pattern, collecting and utilizing the customer insight, and mainly for the purpose of fraud detection and monitoring financial market activities. That is the main benefit of having this big data analytics. So here we have some of the challenges with respect to the big data analytics. So anyway, we are analyzing, we are uncovering the pattern which is hidden in nature. So we have to get the insight of a customer review. So we have to analyze what is their taste, what is their requirements in the market. So for that purpose, we have some of the challenges in order to have this big data analytics, which is those, that is uncertainty of data management landscape. What is the first challenge we are going to face in a big data analytics? That is uncertainty of data management landscape. It means what? As we all know that big data will going to be grow, or it will going to be growing enormously day by day. If I wanted to do the analysis, I am done with the 10 days of analysis, but when it comes to the 11th day, I can have enormous data for that. So at that time again I need to do the analysis. So mainly the massive amount of data could be one of the default, or could be one of the challenge in order to analyze in a efficient manner. So as the data grows up and up, at the time we have to analyze in a well mannered. That means what? We have to analyze that enormous data or exponentially growing data with very careful, or to be very conscious. Then the big data talent gap. So as we all know that the challenge is very high. So the complexity is also high. But in the field of this big data analytics, we have only few experts. So if we have only few experts, that means what? That will going to create some talent gap. So now young generation is not having a concern regarding this big data analytics, because what? They have to think, they have to work hard in order to analyze the features, in order to analyze the historical data, current data, and even the future data. So it will going to take more time, and complexity is also high. Mainly what? We have only few experts in the field of big data analytics. That could also be one of the challenge. Next, getting data into the big data platform. I have a number of organization, I have a number of techniques, and I have a variety of data. In which technique or in which methodology I can put my data of my organization? That could also be one of the challenges. So if you are using wrong technique for the data which is existed, then there could be a problem. So if I have best technology but my data is inadequate in nature, then that could also be one of the challenge. So that is regarding this getting data into big data platform. That means if you wanted to have a data and information in the big data analytics, but the data is not so adequate, that is also one of the challenge. Next, need for synchronization across the data sources. I am not going to get the data from single source. It will be collected from the various sources. So there must be a synchronization, there must be a compatibility. What is the last challenge? That is getting important insights through the use of big data analytics. We can't say that we are going to get 100% analysis or 100% efficient and effective analysis. So there could be a situation that we could have missed some of the data and information which is required for analysis, and I may inserted or added some of the data which is not necessary for my analysis. There could be some kind of those situations can be occurred. So these are the challenges we have to face when we are analyzing the big data. So now we'll see about the latest trends which we have in the big data analytics. So what is the first one? Data as a service. Data is an asset for the organization. So in order to have a data and information which is necessary for my decision making in my organization, then I have to pay for that. And we have a accessible artificial intelligence and predictive analytics. What will going to happen in the future in the market? Then quantum computing in order to have a concern regarding the massive amount of data. Then edge computing. Everything will come to the network edge. No need to worry about the speed of a network. No need to worry about the burden to a particular network type. And we have a natural language processing. In short, it will be termed as NLP in order to extract the handwritten, in order to extract the typed text which is already exist. Then hybrid clouds, and also we have a dark data. Is the data is in dark? No, not like that. Dark data in the sense what? Data which is not used anywhere in the analytics. That means I have some data which is kept confidentially. Now I want that to be analyzed in a proper manner. For that purpose also we are going to have this dark data. So these are the trends and technology which we have currently in the big data analytics. I hope you all understood. So in my next session, we will continue with the same chapter, that is Unit 3, Introduction to Big Data Acquisition, Collection and Transmission. So this will be the end of today's session. Let me meet you in the next session. Until that, keep learning, keep on growing. Thank you.